Welcome. This is our Wheel and Anchor fall trip overview, where I'm going to cover all of the programs where we still have some space available on our upcoming trips between September and the end of the year. For those of you who have been on many Wheel and Anchor webinars before, just bear with me for one moment. I just want to say a couple of quick words about what we are all about. We are a community of travelers from all across the country, and I mean all across the country. We have literally, I think somebody been on our trips from every province and territory, including Nunavut and the Northwest Territories and all over the map, which is really what is amazing. And the thing that we all have in common, not just that we're all Canadian, or at least 99% of us, but that we have a bit of a like-minded view on travel. And those of you who share my view on a little bit slower travel, taking time to enjoy, to stop and smell the roses. In fact, that's the theme of my newsletter video that I just recorded for this weekend. That is how we like to travel. We like to have fun, we like to learn, and we like to connect to other people as we see these wonderful places around the world. I always say to people, you're not going to see the whole world, but why not enjoy the moments of the places that you do see by taking the time, going at a little bit slower pace. And our trips are of different paces, and I'll explain that as I go through the ones that are available this fall. But we place a great deal of value about the connections that are forged between our members and those who we meet along the way in these other countries. And when you have trips that run at a bit of a slower pace, I was out with a group today here in Madeira, and we ran into, some lovely folks from the UK and others from Germany. And there was time to sort of stop and chat and find out what they're all about and why they're here and, where they like to travel. And that's really what this experience at Wheel and Anchor is all about. Let me introduce our team, starting with myself. My name is Gordon Dreger. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor. I curate all of the trips that we offer here, a growing number of trips. But I couldn't do it without my amazing team of people. And the ones who you are most likely to meet are either Paula or Barb. Barb has joined us today, who are our trip specialists that are the ones that make sure that you get your questions answered and that you really are able to join us in full confidence of knowing what you're about to expect on our trip. So that is our front of house team, if you will, who's there to greet you. So I'm going to get right into it because we have quite a bit of ground to cover geographically in terms of the different trips. I'm only going to spend about a maximum of about a minute talking about each one because I want to, as they give you a little bit of an insight and the highlights of why you might join us on these different trips. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to start off with our active wellness category. This is a new category of trips that we just introduced at the end of last year. And we're starting off with 2 trips this year to Europe. Active wellness is all about trips where we are keeping more active. So in this case, in both of these cases, we're talking about walking or hiking. We're not talking about super strenuous hiking or mountain climbing or anything super dangerous or overly strenuous, but by staying active and staying well, ability to have a vital and long life and to be able to travel more. And, I see lots of members who wish that they would have taken care of themselves a little bit better at an earlier age. And the idea behind these trips is that not only you're traveling, but you are keeping active and also the wellness component. And so in both of these trips, we have some amazing spas that we offer. So that combination, the Europeans have been doing it, of course, for 100 years or more. They know what this is all about. And so we want to try and introduce this particularly to our members and with the hopes that you'll consider taking a trip that has some incredible scenery and sights and learning, but also keeps you a bit active. Our first one at the end of September is our active wellness trip in the Austrian Alps. This one, if you look at the inset map here, takes place in the middle, almost the geographical center of Austria, in the province of Salzburg. And we're going to spend 1 week at the beautiful lakeside town of Zell am See, which is known in the wintertime among skiers as a popular ski town. It's surrounded by some amazing glacier-capped mountains to the south. We're going to spend a week at a lovely family-owned hotel, predominantly hiking. And when I say hiking, we're going to be walking sort of from 5 to 10 kilometers a day with a local guide. There's the ability to sort of run ahead or go behind because we provide detailed information about where the trail goes and where we're going to meet and the places to stop and eat along the way. The second week of our trip, we're going to be spending in the Gastein Valley, which is about 90 kilometers south of Salzburg. Salzburg is probably familiar to you as the birthplace of Mozart. And this is some of the finest mountain scenery you're going to get in Austria. And the Gastein Valley is most famous for its spa, for its thermal waters. That people have been going here for centuries, frankly, but it's been very popular over the last 100 years. And I'm going through the pictures sort of randomly. These are shots actually from Zell am See, and the beautiful lake that is at the bottom of these very green and picturesque mountains. And Bad Hofgastein, which is the town we're staying. Bad, you probably heard this before, in German means spa, and Gastein is the name of the valley. So in this town, we again have a lovely family-owned hotel. And this week is a little bit more. We've got a whole series of admissions to these incredible alpine thermal spa facility that you see here. This is all naturally heated water. And so you have the ability to combine some walking in the wonderful meadows and alpine pastures along very well-marked trails and to return and enjoy some various spa treatments. So this is an incredible 2-week program that, again, offers a great combination of hiking in the Alps, beautiful mountain scenery, Austrian cuisine and hospitality, as well as the wellness aspects of the spa. Our second active wellness program takes place right after in both Slovakia and the Czech Republic, or they now call it Czechia, at the beginning of October. And here on this program, it's the same idea with a little more emphasis on the wellness part, although there's lots of wonderful hiking. We're going to start off by flying into Vienna and transferring right up to a famous spa town in Slovakia, probably the most famous in Slovakia, called Piešťany. And in Piešťany, again, they have here properties in the water, in the mud, that are very unique, very therapeutic. And again, people have been coming from all over the world to visit this spa town, as well as the next one in Karlovy Vary. In Piešťany, it's in the foothills of what's called the Little Carpathian Mountains. Wonderful scenery. There's some lovely castles that we're going to visit. But at each of the hotels on this program, we're going to have a whole series of included spa treatments. And when I say spa, I don't mean like cosmetic spa. I don't mean like facials and manicures and pedicures and so on, although that's possible to get as well. But I'm talking about massage treatments, hydrotherapy, inhalation treatments. There's all kinds of therapies that they've been using in these places for a long, long time to help with some of the effects of, frankly, getting older. Although it's just as well suited to younger people as well. But I mean, if you've got aches and pains or this and that, or digestive tract issues, there's something just about for everyone. And at both the hotels that we're going to be staying in Piešťany, as well as in Karlovy Vary, we're going to be staying at the beautiful Thermia Palace Hotel. Here, this is a 5-star spa resort property, one of the finest in the region. You're going to consult with a so-called spa doctor. You're going to talk to him a little bit about what your issues are, if you will. We all have some issue. We all have a little pain here, an ache there, whatever it happens to be. And they're going to consult with you on a series of treatments that are included as part of your program. You can expand on that if you wish. You can do less than that if you wish, but I think most people are there to really enjoy the benefit of all of these treatments. The second week, we're going to stay in perhaps the most famous spa town in Central Europe, which is called Karlovy Vary, or Karlsbad in German, which literally means Charles's Baths. This is a wonderful Art Deco town that is nestled in the hills of Western Czech Republic. The town itself is absolutely picturesque. Some of you may be familiar if you've ever passed through Prague. It's about an hour and 15 minutes away from Prague. So it's often as a day trip, and it's absolutely magical. And we're staying here in one of the best hotels in the village of Karlovy Vary, which I've toured both of these myself. It's beautiful facilities. And once again, you'll have your report of the things that you did during the first week in Slovakia, and you'll take that with you, and you'll continue on in the second week with a series of treatments focusing on the things that you felt worked for you. And in the middle of all that, because you'll probably do maybe 1 or 2 treatments a day, and then you'll also we'll take you out to see some beautiful towns and villages. Czech Republic, of course, known for some of the most beautiful castles around, and so we're going to tour around, for example, here to Castle Loket, which is just not far. It's about half an hour away on one of the excursions that are included in the program. So our active wellness programs are really an amazing way to do something for yourself, for your wellness, for your well-being, for your vitality. These are going to be amazing, amazing experiences. I'm going to switch gears now and go to our water-based programs, our cruise/boat programs. We, of course, don't do big ship cruising. We only do little ships. And so I'm going to give you an overview of some of the ones that are listed here. Starting with, at the end of September, this is our Yachting the Turkish Mediterranean program, which we very successfully ran for the first time this past year. We've chartered the ship twice this year because we were sold out completely very early on. In fact, the first departure is already sold out. This is the remaining departure that we have. We're going to be starting, this trip begins with a few days of Turkey on the Strait of Bosphorus that connects the Mediterranean to the Black Sea. And we're going to spend a few days touring there, and then we're going to travel overland. It's a bit of a long journey, but we're going to see a lot of the Turkish countryside that you generally miss on most tours of Turkey. And then we're going to check in for a few days here on the Aegean coast at Ayvalık, at a lovely, lovely hotel that our members really gave us some rave reviews about. And we're going to spend a couple of days exploring a little bit of the rural side of Turkey, although this is a known resort town amongst Turkish clientele. From there, we're going to head down, to Ephesus, which is, of course, famous for the UNESCO ruins there. And then embark our yacht in Bodrum, where we'll be cruising amongst the incredible scenery of the Mediterranean coast for a week before ending up in Dalaman and then flying back to Istanbul from there. This is a shot of our Gulet. This is one of a kind. In fact, we have to book this well in advance just to be able to get her. She is a beautiful, all mahogany inside, wonderful, very well appointed cabins, beds that you can approach from both sides, which is very important. That's why this is one of the only Gulets in Turkey that's like it. And the scenery speaks for itself. It's the coastline of Turkey. I remember I first sailed it more than a dozen years ago, and it is truly, truly magnificent. Some stunning bays. You'll anchor offshore. It's full service on this vessel. The crew's at your disposal with all the meals, all the drinks. It's really an incredible experience. Our extension to this year is program to this is new this year. We're heading off to Cappadocia in the central part of Turkey, which is obviously known for its cave formations, its so-called fairy chimneys that stick up. You can sort of see them in the picture. And of course, you can't visit Cappadocia without doing a hot air ballooning. That's what it's perhaps most famous for. So we'll be doing that at the end of the program. Another trip we're going to be doing at the end of the year, where we still have a few cabins left, is our Lochs and Castles of Scotland program happening in the last 2 weeks of September. This trip here begins in Edinburgh with a couple of days. We then go overland through the Scottish Highlands up to Inverness, where we'll spend a night before embarking on our beautiful ship that is going to take us down the Caledonian Canal. A lot of Canadians haven't heard about the Caledonian Canal before, but this is the stretch of water that connects basically the English Channel or the North Sea to the other side of Scotland, the Atlantic Ocean, or at least the bays on the west side of Scotland. The vessel from the outside doesn't look very pretty, but she is very, very beautiful and luxurious inside. And as we go through these canal, which consists of like 29 locks and 4 aqueducts, I think, and a bunch of bridges, we'll pass through some of Scotland's famous castles, wonderful scenery of the Scottish Highlands. I'm sure we'll taste a fine whiskey or two along the way and be told lots of tales by our two wonderful guides that are going to be accompanying us on this trip. This is a very unique trip. Again, we've chartered this vessel 2 years ago because this trip is very frequently sold out. And because we only have a handful of cabins left and we want to see this sold out, we actually have a special offer on this program. So if you're interested in coming with us to Scotland, then call in to Paula or Barb and quote the special code 8769. And we have a very, very good deal available to you if you're interested in joining us, because we're looking at filling up those remaining cabins as soon as we can. We have an extension program. This trip actually ends on the West Coast at the end of the Caledonian Canal cruise, but we have a few extra days tacked on where we'll visit the Isle of Skye, the famous Isle of Skye, and end up by taking the West Highland Railway from the west coast of Scotland all the way down to Glasgow. So that is a wonderful finale to an amazing trip that is going to take us through the Scottish Highlands. So again, special offer on that one. If you haven't traveled to Scotland before, I can highly recommend it. Also, at the end of September, we have a few cabins left on our Boating the Canal du Midi program. The Canal du Midi, if you're not familiar with it, is a canal that was built in the Napoleonic era, which connects the Atlantic Ocean from somewhere here near Bordeaux all the way through down near Montpellier in southern France. It is an amazing, at the time, it was the most remarkable piece of engineering of humanity at that time. And so we'll be doing the stretch between Toulouse, we're going to fly into Toulouse, and then we're going to start in Carcassonne, the medieval city. We'll join our canal boat and stop at various towns and villages over the course of a week, where we'll be able to go and visit a vineyard, or just wake up in the morning and go to a local bakery and pick up some pastries, some delicious French pastries. We have some restaurants selected along the way that we'll enjoy lunch and dinner at. And otherwise, we'll be just cruising on our boat, enjoying the countryside in the company of our captain, Hank, and his wife, Audrey, if we have 2 boats in the end, and 2 of our wonderful Wheel and Anchor hosts who have their own barge and have sailed all around the canals of Europe. They're very experienced at it. And you'll have a marvelous time. As I say, we'll stop at places like Chateau Peraza, one of my favorites, taste all of the wines, and I'm sure there'll be probably a case or 2 that might go underneath the arm to enjoy as we're cruising down the river. We'll also pass through Béziers and the aqueduct, where actually this bridge here looks like a road bridge, but actually the canal goes over top of the river. So it's quite a remarkable spot. And we end up in Agde, which is right close to the Mediterranean, where we'll return our canal boat before finishing with a couple of days in Montpellier. So that's our Canal du Midi trip. Also, at the beginning of October, at the tail end of September, our very popular Slovenia and Croatia and the Dalmatian Coast program. In fact, we just sold the last cabin for our May sailing just last week, but there is still space in October. And this is a brand new program in October, actually, because I went there in the fall and I just decided to tweak and change some things. So on this particular program, we're going to put all of the land touring up front. So we're going to start off in Ljubljana. So this time we're going to be staying in the capital city of Slovenia. This is a charming, charming city of the Alps. Do some trips up to Lake Bled, which is where we've previously stayed, and Lake Bohinj. So we'll have a number of nights in Ljubljana before we then go overland to the Istrian Peninsula. A chunk of land that sticks out into the Adriatic Sea. And we're going to be staying here in a wonderful little town called Rovinj, and an adults-only beautiful hotel, boutique hotel that's right on the coast that I've picked up. And we'll be visiting Istria for a few days and going truffle hunting, which Istria is very famous for, before going overland 1 trip down. And we'll be joining our ship this year in Primosten. So we're going to avoid the embarkation and the busyness of Split and sail 7 days from there, ending in Dubrovnik. So we're going to do a 1-way cruise southbound from Primosten down to Dubrovnik. and then have a couple of days at Kavtat at the end. Some of the highlights of this trip, of course, Lake Bled in Slovenia, which is just absolutely picturesque. Here is the vessel. This is a family-owned vessel. I met the captain, the owner, and his family when I was there. It's only got, I think, 13 cabins on it. All of them except for one are on one deck, which makes it very unique. It's the only such yacht on the Adriatic. And so it's a very familial environment. And as I say, we're going to be starting here at Primošten, a lovely village, a great place to start the trip away from the hustle bustle of Split, which we're of course going to visit along the way. And we'll end in Dubrovnik, which of course is a town that everybody wants to visit. And the best way to visit it, in my opinion, is not on a giant cruise ship, but rather on a yacht like this. And as I say, we'll end off with 2 days at the nearby resort town of Kavtat, which we can access quite easily from Dubrovnik. Coming up in November, we have our mighty Mekong trip, that we ran last year in November. Came back with absolutely rave reviews. People adored the trip. This one here, we begin in Siem Reap, which is of course the town, the home of Angkor Wat, the home of Angkor Wat. In the middle of Cambodia. We'll spend a few days touring, not just Angkor Wat, which is of course the highlight, but there's so many other interesting ancient ruins that are a bit off the chart for most tourists. So we're going to see a little bit of that. There's literally over 2,000 ancient temples in and around Siem Reap. But we're only going to visit a few. From there, we'll head overland again down to Kampong Cham, where we'll embark on our ship and head downstream on the Mekong, ending up in Ho Chi Minh City. Angkor Wat needs no introduction. You've probably seen it all in National Geographic. It's undoubtedly one of the highlights of the trip. We have once again chartered the Basok Pandaw. What I like about Pandaw ships is that the owner, a UK entrepreneur and philanthropist, took the idea of taking the colonial style of riverboats and basically making replicas of them. So all of the cabins are done in wood. It's a very cozy feel on board, and you have those deck chairs. It makes you feel like you were sailing up the river with the colonialists 200 years ago, but with better intentions, of course. Anyway, that's another story, and you'll hear all about the history of that. Again, the ship and the crew got rave reviews by our members who joined us last year for this trip. So again, you'll pass through Cambodia, down into Vietnam, ending up in Ho Chi Minh City, and see some of the incredible sights of rural Vietnam along the way. This trip also has an add-on program. I'm not going to talk about it today, through Vietnam, that was also extremely well received, that begins with the ending of our river cruise program and goes all the way up the whole length of Vietnam, ending up in Hanoi in the north. Also in November, we have our Egypt in the Nile program, which is also a boat program because we, of course, are going to be cruising the Nile between Luxor and Aswan. The trip begins in Cairo, visiting the most famous of sites, including, of course, the pyramids at Giza, as well as the Saqqara Temple, and the Grand Egyptian Museum, which is due to finally be opened later this year. So by the time we do this trip, it should be open. There's no guarantee of that. It was supposed to have been open before COVID, but they're almost there. So visiting Cairo is an experience unto itself. It's quite a hustle bustle city, but really, really fascinating to see. It's one of those places you have to visit once in your life. We have chartered once again this fine vessel. The Dahabeeyah is what it's called. The Dahabeeyah is the original ships that the nobility used to cruise up and down the Nile. So it looks a little bit like a sailing ship. It doesn't actually sail, but because it's a smaller vessel just for us, it enables us to stop at some incredible stops along the way. The traditional ones, as well as the less traditional ones. In the Valley of the Kings, we, for example, arranged a special admission to the Seti I tomb. Most people on their Valley of the Kings ticket or pass have access to about 5 different tombs, but there are a bunch of other special access only tombs that you have to arrange access to, and the finest of those is the tomb of Seti I, and that's one of the ones that we'll be visiting, again, away from the crowds, because we actually pay quite a premium to get the ticket and the authority to visit that. We have an extension trip during the cruise from Aswan, where you have the ability to go and visit Abu Simbel. It's a short flight, about 45 minutes from Aswan down to Abu Simbel, which is down in the south of Egypt near the border to Sudan. And Abu Simbel, the picture never does it justice. These are giant statues of the pharaohs that were created. And what makes it quite interesting is, of course, the entire structure, the whole mountain, if you will, was moved piece by piece when they built the Aswan Dam and flooded it, creating Lake Nasser, which would have otherwise put the whole thing underwater. But it was declared such a significant archaeological site that they literally moved it piece by piece into its current location. Really, really remarkable. And of course, we visit the pyramids as well in Cairo. That is a must-see for anybody visiting Egypt. So once again, I'm going to switch gears to one of our other program category types, which is called a sojourn. So many of you will know that we have our live away programs, and we're not going to talk about any of those because we aren't currently running any live aways in the fall. And a live away is a longer stay, 2 weeks in one place, where we do a bunch of side trips and we have lots of time to sort of explore on our own. A sojourn is a hybrid it's halfway between a live away and what we call in our experiential programs. And I'm going to get into those as the last segment of this webinar. The sojourn allows us to spend a few days, 3 or 4 nights in 3 or 4 different spots, so that you have time to both see the things that we think that are important for you to see, so the curated part of the program, but also free time for you to explore on your own. And in the south of France, I can't think of a better way to explore through this part of the country. So in October, the trip is on its way next week. On this very same itinerary, we start in Nice, which is, of course, the jewel of the Côte d'Azur, not far away from Monaco. So we spend the first 4 nights in Nice, exploring a little bit of the coast, the city itself, the artist town of Saint-Paul-de-Vence. We'll then go overland through the foothills of the Alps. This is the southwestern arm of the Alps, if you will, up into the Haute-Provence to a lovely town called Forcalquier. Here we'll be exploring the Luberon region, the famous villages of Luberon, as well as Aix-en-Provence. And the final leg will be Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, which is down towards the Rhone Valley. This is the delta of the Rhone, where it enters into the Mediterranean Sea. So Nice doesn't need much introduction. It is a belle epoque city that is really, really a lovely place to wander around. And this is the kind of place where you definitely want to spend time wandering the pedestrian streets in Vieux-Nice, in the old part of Nice, and grabbing some coffee and just sort of watching the world go by. And at this time of the year, there's still an amazing number of people that will be enjoying the beaches because the Mediterranean stays warm well into October. We're going to go into the surrounding countryside as we go up to Haute-Provence. We're a little past lavender season, so the picture is a little deceiving. So the lavender fields probably won't be in bloom anymore. But this is where we see some of these very typical French Provence style of abbeys and villas and the like. From Forcalquier, we visit the area called Baux-de-Provence. This includes Luberon. This includes the Verdon Gorge, some incredible nature, and these wonderful medieval villages that are sort of scattered through the countryside. The last leg, as I mentioned, is in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, which is just about a half an hour, 40 minutes south of Avignon. And from here, we're going to explore Arles, which is a wonderful, wonderful town with an amazing Colosseum on the Rhone River. We'll also visit a bit of the Camargue. This is the sort of the Wild West of southern France, again, in the delta of the Rhone. And of course, Avignon, which is most famed for Palais des Papes, the Palace of the Popes, this incredible structure where many popes lived in past centuries. So that wraps up our sojourn programs. So our last segment here, I'm going to talk about our experiential programs. Now, what we call an experiential program is more like a classic sightseeing tour. But that being said, I abhor the idea of bus tours. And so we try to create these. These are, again, all curated by myself and worked out by our team so that they still move from place to place. So we still sometimes have, only one or two nights in various places, but we still allow for time for you to explore and do things on your own. It's it's at the heart of what we do at Wheel and Anchor. So these are our experiential journeys that are happening in the fall, starting with India. And so, it's funny talking to members over the last couple of months that I've been, visiting and traveling with our different groups. People have a bit of a questionable view about India, but I can tell you, if you are not sure, but you thought, wow, I probably should go to India once in my life, then this trip visiting Rajasthan and the palaces of India is absolutely the way to go. We start in Delhi. In Delhi, there's both Old Delhi and New Delhi. And New Delhi is actually remarkable. Tree-lined streets, grand villas and palaces, embassies are there. It's remarkable. It's not what you expect the first time that you visit. But we'll also spend time in Old Delhi, which is chaotic, and cows in the street, and the spice markets and all the rest of it. It's quite a city. We'll fly then down to Udaipur and visit the Golden Triangle, which are these key cities that form the main attractions, if you will, of Rajasthan. And then we'll end up visiting the Ranthambore National Park, which is the home of some of India's tigers. And then, of course, Agra with the Taj Mahal. I won't talk about Delhi. I could talk for an hour just about Delhi because I think it's a fascinating city and worth a visit unto itself. But Udaipur, the Jagdish Temple is one of the many that we'll visit. Each one of these is more spectacular than the other. And, I know that a lot of our people think, oh, you travel around Europe and you visit one church to another, and it's the so-called ABC tour. But these temples and the stories behind them are really remarkable, and they are worth time at every single one. Udaipur is also the lake city. There's a number of lakes scattered around Udaipur, and it's where you'll find as well the Lake Palace. In fact, our hotel, the Leela in Udaipur, overlooks the Lake Palace, which was famous from the James Bond movie Man with the Golden Gun. We'll visit the city of Jodhpur, the Blue City, which you can see from Merindarg Fort that sits high up on top of the hill. You can see this mass sprawling sea of blue below you that this picture actually does a pretty good job of capturing. We'll visit the Pink City of Jaipur, which, of course, has its own character, and there's some incredible buildings here. But India is much more about than just the buildings. Of course, the people are really wonderful and amazing. And, of course, India has people from all sort of segments of life. We'll learn a little bit about the caste system that's sort of officially, unofficially still exists in India, and how this country of 1.7 billion, I think it is, people actually goes on. But what's neat about Rajasthan is when you're in places like Jaipur, it's remarkable how much sort of empty landscape there is, because of course we all think of India as like one big packed city, and it's actually far from that. Our trip, as I mentioned, will stop in Sawai Madhopur and the Ranthambore National Park. We'll be out on safari trying to spot the elusive tiger. Tiger is a very threatened species, of course, and so is no guarantee that you're going to see one, but if you try real hard, you might get lucky. I have never seen a tiger in the wild, but if you visit Ranthambore, at least you get yourself as close as you can and cross your fingers that you'll be able to see one. And of course, you can't visit India without stopping at the Taj Mahal, the world's most incredible symbol of love that was erected as a mausoleum to. That's for you to enjoy when you. Amazing trip, and this trip, what sets it apart, we're staying in palace hotels throughout. In I think every single stop. Some of them will be at the price point we have. It is a pretty amazing journey, which I highly, highly recommend. The extension program to Rajasthan is down in the south, in the province of what's called Kerala, which is in the southwestern side of India. And one of the highlights there is going through the so-called backwaters on one of these rice boats. So this is like a houseboat. They've got 1 or 2 bedrooms on board. You've got your own crew and a chef that prepares a meal for you, and spending a night cruising around is, again, a remarkable experience. Our next experiential trip, which is actually more like a sojourn, but we've stuck it in this category anyway. This immediately precedes our Provence and Côte d'Azur trip. So for a lot of people, they like to go to France and do 2 in 1. So you can do Lyon, Burgundy, you can do the Canal du Midi, and you can do Provence and the Côte d'Azur, or whatever combination. We can't do all the combinations, obviously, because they're back to back, but you can combine 2 or all 3 of those programs, which is what many of our members like to do, because why not when you're already all the way over there? Our Lyon Burgundy program is focused on 2 spots. First of all, Lyon, which is the second or third largest city in, I think it's the second largest city in France after Paris, where we'll spend a number of nights staying in the heart of Lyon. I actually love Lyon more than Paris. The architecture is very similar, but the people are way more laid back. So it's, Lyon is all about, it's the food capital of France. It's just an amazing in the heart of, it's not really in the heart of Burgundy. It's sort of in the south end of Burgundy, again, on the Rhone, or where the Rhone and Saône rivers come together. So the first part is there, and the second part is up in Dijon, which of course you'll be familiar with the name from the mustard. And from Dijon, we toured the area known as Côte de Nuits, which is famous for the Burgundy wines, and the Burgundy wine capital of Beaune, which is part of this program. As I say, I absolutely adore Lyon. I was there with a group last year, and this, what makes this trip special. This is, I must say, this is a bit of a foodie trip. So, whoops, we went forward. We have a number of culinary highlights that are in part of this program, and perhaps the highlight of which is our dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant. Last time we went, I think this is a picture that I took, if I'm not mistaken, we visited Jérémy Galvan, who is one of France's most up-and-coming Michelin star chefs. And he took us through a earth, land, fire, and water experience, which was like 25 courses or 25 different dishes over 2.5 hours. We had some real foodies in the group, and I think most people would agree it was an experience like no ever. We have to book this well in advance. If it's not Jérémy Galvan, it'll be one of the other fabulous Michelin star chefs. But we'll also taste on this trip some of the traditional Lyonnais and Burgundian food. I tell you, this is not a trip that you want to take if you're planning on going on a diet. The wine of the region from Burgundy is, of course, world-renowned as well. This is the tasting of the wines in places like Beaune and in the cellars in Côte de Nuits is what makes this a particularly fascinating trip as well. Also in October, we're off to South Africa. And we've created what we call the ultimate road trip. South Africa gets a bit of a bad rap. And so for those who've been, they know what an incredible country it is. It's certainly facing its economic challenges, as it has been for quite a long time, both economic and political, but it is stable, it is safe, and it is an amazing place to visit. So we've put together, again, we've our colleague who runs our operations department actually lives in Johannesburg, and so she has gone and done this whole itinerary at least twice. So we've seen the hotels, we've seen every single aspect of the trip, and curated it to fulfill exactly what we think is the perfect experience of the Southern Cape of South Africa. Beginning in Cape Town, we'll visit that region, we'll visit the winelands in and around Paarl and Franschhoek. We'll head down to Cape Agulhas, which is the southernmost point of Africa, not the Cape of Good Hope. We'll visit that too, but that's not the southernmost point. We'll then proceed along what's called the Garden Route, visiting Swellendam, Oudtshoorn, Knysna, and ending up in Stormsrivier, and then flying from Port Elizabeth back via Johannesburg from there. We do have a pre-program in Johannesburg for a few days. Again, Johannesburg, if South Africa gets a bad rap because I think people are concerned about what's going on there, Johannesburg gets the worst of rap as being a super dangerous city. Well, I can tell you, And as I say, one of our colleagues lives there, and there are dangerous parts to it, but for the most part, it's actually a fascinating city. And it's, of course, where a lot of the center of the gold trade originated and still occurs. So we'll take some time understanding a bit about Johannesburg, Soweto, where Nelson Mandela spent many of his years, and a number of other areas around, in and around Johannesburg. But of course, we begin in Cape Town, one of the most beautiful cities you'll find certainly in Africa, if not the whole world. We'll spend a few days here. One of the things that I love about South Africa that, again, most people are surprised by is the fact that it is a culinary haven. The food in South Africa is like rivals that of the finest countries in Europe for food, like France and Italy. It is incredible. They put a lot of effort into food. And not only is it amazing, it's not even half the price of what it is in Canada. In most cases, it's about a third of the price. And the quality you get is amazing. Of course, the wines that are produced in South Africa are known to many Canadians. What we can find on the shelves is only a fraction of what they actually produce, but in the Franschhoek area, which has some beautiful mountains and countryside, we'll have a chance to sort of sample some of that. And as I say, I won't go through the whole itinerary, but we'll make our way down the garden route. We'll see coastal scenery, we'll see gardens, of course, and we'll come through sort of the unique culture that is the Cape region of southern South Africa, and Tsitsikamma as well, which again, one of the very picturesque towns that we'll visit along the way. We have an extension program available because some people are like, well, I'm going to go to South Africa and not go on safari. We made this separate because, quite frankly, the best game reserves, the private game reserves, are fairly pricey, and they're getting more expensive. So, but of course, if that's your wish, we have picked in southern South Africa, probably the best of the best in Kwandwe. It's an amazing experience. It's a private reserve, which means the animals, I mean, of course, they're to some degree free to roam around, but they look after them such that they have a great diversity. You should find pretty much all the big five in Kwandwe, and so you can include that as an optional extension onto your program. In November, we have what's become also one of our most popular trips, which is Morocco. We've been 3 times already, just since we launched this trip last November. And Morocco is, without a doubt, and I've said this for a long time, I'm just not sure why it took so long for people to realize what an incredible country it is to visit. And this trip certainly covers all the bases, and based on the it just ended about a week ago. The reviews were phenomenal. We begin in Casablanca. We head up to the northern tip near the Strait of Gibraltar to Tangier, down through the Rif Mountains to Chefchaouen, Fez, of course, which is one of the cultural highlights, down into the Merzouga Desert, which is the western end of the Sahara, through the Atlas Mountains, heading back to Marrakesh with all of its incredible souks. That will be the last stop on our trip around Morocco. We start and end in Casablanca, although the city itself is not super touristy friendly, but there is an incredible mosque to visit there. As I mentioned, we'll head up to Tangier. We'll visit into this incredible Andalusian influenced town called Chefchaouen. And this is where you see southern Spain, northern Morocco. There's a lot of interchange between culture and design and architecture. That's kind of what makes it very interesting. Undoubtedly, our members loved spending a couple of nights in a tent in the Sahara Desert, going for a camel ride, and just experiencing the pure raw stillness and beauty that the Sahara is all about. It's if you've never spent time in the desert, this is perhaps one of the best places to do it, where you get the view of the incredible dunes, and on the way back to the west across the Atlas Mountains, we'll see some of these incredible kasbahs, these fortresses that are built out of adobe, that are, again, remarkable and not completely unique to Morocco, but in Morocco, they're most accessible, because, of course, we stay in very comfortable accommodations. We use riads, which is the traditional oblong, square-shaped palatial homes, many of which have been converted into hotels because they're quite large, that Morocco is famous for. And so in pretty much all the stops along the way, we stay in these riads, which again makes for a very authentic Moroccan experience. We're getting close to the end. Thank you for indulging me for 45 minutes so far. We have at the end of the fall, just before we get to winter, one of our newest programs that I've put together and I'll be hosting personally this year, which is our Christmas markets trip. People have been asking me this for a long time because there's, we don't have Christmas markets like this in Canada, with all due respect. We make an attempt, albeit a bit of a weak one, but you can't beat the ones in Europe. And we're going to do the best of the best. Well, this is arguable because there's so many great Christmas markets in Europe. However, we're going to fly into Frankfurt, easily accessible by nonstop flight from a number of cities in Canada. And we'll check out the one there, but we're going to spend some days in Dusseldorf, visiting obviously the Christmas markets in Dusseldorf and Cologne before heading across to Ghent. Once again, visiting these cities in and of itself, a lot of people don't think about visiting Dusseldorf. It's an absolutely gorgeous city, as is Ghent. And from there, we'll do the Christmas market in Brussels, in Bruges, which is a very picturesque town on the English Channel. And then we'll fly across to my personal favorite, I'm a bit biased here, for the Christmas markets in Vienna, as well as neighboring Bratislava. Frankfurt is one of the biggest Christmas markets. It seems like it takes up like the whole pedestrian area in downtown Frankfurt. And a lot of people think of Frankfurt as only a business hub with skyscrapers and, lots of guys driving around in Mercedes, but it has actually a very, very pretty old town. I really enjoy Frankfurt, and experiencing the Christmas market there is definitely a treat. Cologne's Christmas market at the foot of the spectacular Kölner Dome, or the Cologne Cathedral, is quite remarkable in and of itself. And each one of these markets has its own sort of specialty, its own food or Glühwein, mulled wine that it happens to be famous for. Bruges, of course, is a city that's well known for its lace and its Belgian pralines and chocolates and all those delicious things. And the city, with the Art Nouveau architecture that you can see here, all lit up at Christmas, is absolutely magical. And as far as I'm concerned, it's hard to beat the Christkindlmarkt, the so-called Christmas market in Vienna here. There's actually multiple Christmas markets in Vienna, as there is in all these cities. So here's the thing. We've designed the program to visit a Christmas market at every stop. You might be Christmas marketed out after 4 or 5 stops, but there's so many other neat things to do. And the beauty at this time of the year is that these cities tend to be a bit less busy. I mean, they have their usual activity of the, people living and working there, but in terms of tourism, and they're not nearly as cold as it is often in Canada. Now, I say that, and I could be wrong, because with climate change, you never know what's going on. But in any event, we wrap up in Vienna and also making a trip to neighboring Bratislava. And that is it for our fall trips. I appreciate you indulging me here for 49 minutes already as we talk about all these different programs. You probably have a million questions. I've been talking. And I've shared a ton of information. But I would encourage you that if you're interested, if anything has piqued your interest from what I've talked about, we obviously have a webinar on every single one of the programs that we've done, where I go into more depth about what's in the program, what's included, some of the things that we'll see, and of course our program itineraries also spell that out in great detail. So all the information is there. Of course, I'll be happy to answer any questions now. And otherwise, you can always drop an email or give a call to Paula or Barb to get any questions answered that I don't receive today. So with a big cheers from our group here from the Aeolian Islands, this was last year, I'll take some of the questions, Barb, that might have come in.
Yeah, I think the only one that's really come in is sort of what is the latest people could book if they're not sure what they're going to be doing and they're more of a last minute.
Well, it's a good question, Barb. It's all at the end of the day based on availability. So some of these trips, we're down to the last cabin or two, like in the case of the Canal du Midi and in India. I think a number of them are almost done. Turkey as well is quite close to being filled up. Generally speaking, beforehand, with some exception, we can extend that a longer, but given the commitments that we have to make to all of our hotel partners and arranging all the transportation and yeah, we'll see if we can squeeze you in later than that. But I think the best thing is to, as we always say, book early to avoid disappointment. And it's not just a sales pitch, but you know, in our case, a lot of our trips do sell out, you know, fairly early on. So, but this is what's left for this fall. Still a good choice though.
Yes, lots of ones. Yeah, so they can always contact us if they have an interest in anyone. It's good for us to know, and then we can send the additional information to them for them to fully decide. Yeah, that's all that's really come in right now.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think that I probably given everybody so much information that they're a little bit overwhelmed. They're gonna have to go back and play the replay again to figure out everything that I've said. But as I say, hopefully something along here has piqued your interest a little bit. You'll join us for one of these trips. I appreciate you taking the time, 50 minutes out of your day to listen to all the great things we're up to at Wheel and Anchor. I would love to see you on one of these trips this coming fall, or at our soon to be announced events this summer that we're going to be doing in a couple of cities across Canada. So between now and then, I wish you all the best. Enjoy spring. Our next webinar is all about Cyprus, our Live Away in Cyprus, which will take place on April 23rd, so just under 2 weeks from now. And I look forward to seeing you then. And thanks again for joining us. And
Gordon, it was mentioned about the New Zealand one and the weekend newsletter.
Yes, for those of you who are registered for our New Zealand Live Away webinar, which was scheduled to happen tomorrow, I've already emailed everybody. We've had to move it, unfortunately, due to a conflict with my schedule here. It'll now take place on Tuesday of next week. The revised time and date will be sent to everybody who signed up for that webinar. And again, you'll find, we'll include it in the newsletter again this weekend. But if you are interested, and if you didn't sign up for that, please drop me or drop Paula or Barb an email, and they'll get you the link to be able to register for that. Thanks for reminding me, Barb. All right, take care, everyone. And once again, have yourselves a great rest of the day. And in the meantime, happy travels.